All right, in this video, we want to address a very common question we get: does my LLC need a U.S. address? Okay, so in the United States, the LLC, or a limited liability company, hands down the most popular entity type created today. Okay, so it's very commonly created by people that live and work in the U.S., but even non-residents, non-U.S. persons can very easily go to the Delaware website, Wyoming, Nevada, and set up a U.S. LLC. And so very often I get questions from these non-residents where they ask, do I need a U.S. address for that LLC? Is that a requirement? So let's dive into some of the details here. Some of the basics. In order to form the LLC, you generally need to have the following information and documents submitted, right? So first, you need an LLC name that's available in the database, right? So you run a name search to see if it's available. If it's already taken, obviously you can't file under that same name because there's a conflict there, right? It's already been used. Once you have a good name available, you file what are either the articles of organization or a certificate of formation with the state. So the labeling, it's the same kind of document. Some states call it one thing versus the other. But effectively, this is the document file with the state to get the entity launched and formed under state law. So, it's either going to be the articles of organization or certificate of formation, depending on what state you're looking to launch the entity in. The third piece here, and this is the most important one, so you have to have a registered agent within the same state where you form the entity. So if you are living in Europe and you form a Delaware LLC, you need to pay for registered agent service in Delaware because you set up a Delaware LLC. So this is effectively the only U.S. address that you need. And this applies to anybody that sets up an LLC. Let's say I am living and working in Florida, but I want to set up a Delaware LLC. If I set up a Delaware LLC, I still need to have a Delaware registered agent, right? Even though I'm a U.S. person and I live in Florida, I'm not in the state of Delaware, so I need somebody there to accept service of process. So you need to pay for registered agent service in the same state where you formed the entity. So this leads us into this next question, right? At the end of the day, does the LLC need to have a physical address or mailing address within the state? And the answer is no. As long as you have a registered agent within the state, that's it. That's all you need. There is no requirement under state law or federal tax issues that you have a U.S. or a local state mailing address, physical address. You don't need any of that. It's actually quite common for U.S. LLCs to have no U.S. owners, no U.S. operations, no U.S. employees. So the entity only has foreign addresses. And even U.S. LLCs that have to file, let's say, a U.S. partnership tax return, a lot of times on the tax return, we use a foreign address. There's no U.S. address whatsoever. Now, again, you still need this registered agent service within the state. That's a requirement under state law. But outside of that, and for federal tax purposes, you can use only foreign addresses. Now, when I have this discussion with my clients, I always recommend having a U.S. mail forwarding address. Now, one of the reasons why I recommend U.S. mail forwarding, there's a couple here, and I've listed three. The U.S. mail system is very bad at sending mail internationally. So if you use a foreign address on, let's say, your tax return or like bank statements, if they try to mail you something to a non-U.S. address, it might get there, right? It might get there eventually. It could be delayed because there's a lot of rerouting, or it could just flat out be lost. And so that's the one problem I have with foreign addresses is because of that contingency. So if you have a U.S. mail forwarding system, you pay for like a virtual mailbox where they open your mail, they scan it, they send you an email with a PDF version. That's fantastic because the U.S. mail system is pretty good within the continental U.S. You're definitely going to get your mail, and then you'll be able to get a copy of it by that third-party provider, and so you never miss anything. The IRS, so the tax notices is another big problem. The IRS is also really bad at sending stuff internationally. I have had clients that had IRS notices sent to foreign addresses where the notice said you have 30 days to respond, but it took 60 days to get the notice to that foreign address because it was sent internationally. Well, 60 days already exceeds the 30-day notice to respond, so my client was already, not, behind the eight ball and in the hole, so to speak, because they've already missed the chance to respond to this. So also not a very good thing. The last item here, U.S. address might be required to open certain bank, credit card, or other merchant accounts. Not always the case, but a lot of times U.S. companies will ask that you have some form of U.S. address for mailing purposes or perhaps physical business purposes, but it does help if you have some kind of U.S. virtual address. And again, not a P.O. box, right? So I would avoid P.O. boxes. There's a lot of mail forwarding address services where you can get an actual physical street address and a suite number. And that looks a lot better and is more helpful than having just a pure P.O. box. So yeah, just to recap, at the end of the day, the LLC does not need a U.S. address. You only need to have a U.S. address for the registered agent service within the same state. But it is a good idea to have some kind of virtual mailbox for some of these issues we just talked about, which, there's a lot of them out there. Basically, they provide you a physical mailing address with your own suite number, your own mailbox number, and that is generally preferable to getting a P.O. box system. So thank you for watching. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. Happy to answer those. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.